Hey there, BookTube. I'm finally getting around to my December wrap-up. Maybe one of these days I'll get a wrap-up video within like the first week of a month. December was a very disappointing reading month for me, especially after what a great November I had. It was, yeah, I only read 3 books, and I say I read 3 of them. I actually listened to 2 of them and read 1 of them. And the first book that I read that actually took me like almost half the month was A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. And I'm probably going to piss a lot of people off about this. I don't understand what's so good about this book. And I am going to preface this by saying that I'm familiar with the story through several movie adaptations, and several of which I like. So maybe that biased me, or I had unrealistic expectations. But I mean, it's only like 125 pages long, but it took me like 16 days to read through it because I just wasn't interested in it. It wasn't moving very quickly. I think Dickens spent way too much time trying to prove he was a great writer by describing shit. And here's the thing, one of the reasons that I love writing is because I love the way that authors can describe things and paint images of things that you've never seen. However, this book was just a bunch of pointless description. When you're writing a short story, I think it goes without saying that you have a limited amount of time and space and words to get your point across. So why would you waste 80% of your words describing pointless crap? He took too much time setting up the story. I mean, I think like the first 60 pages happen before even Marley's ghost shows up. Not that it was poorly written, but I didn't think it was all that well written, and I didn't think the book, I don't know, I didn't really like it. I didn't enjoy it. For me to take 16 days to read 125 pages, to me that says a lot about the quality of the writing, and maybe to you it says a lot about my taste in books. I guess it just depends on your point of view. But so that was my first book. The next 2 were audiobooks. The first one was Stardust by Neil Gaiman. I'd never read any Neil Gaiman before, and again, just prefacing that I have seen the movie Stardust, and I really liked it. So I was really excited to listen to this book, and it was actually narrated by Neil Gaiman. And I have to say, as an audiobook narrator, I was very impressed with Neil Gaiman. As far as his book Stardust, I think he fell into the same trap that Dickens did with Christmas Carol. I thought he spent far too much time trying to describe shit. And now, granted, I did find out that Stardust was originally kind of like an illustrated novel before it became more of a conventional novel, so maybe that's part of the reason. And there was definitely, like, the whole story of Stardust I really liked. I thought there was several things that the movie changed that made it a lot better. And again, I think Neil Gaiman just spent 90% of the book just describing stuff. He would get to points in the book and he would be, where some authors would be like, oh, such and such was like such and such. But he wouldn't just do it once. He'd be like, oh, such and such was like such and such. And then he'd be like, oh, such and such was like this also. And then it was also like this, and it's also like that. And it's like, you only have to give me 1 example. You don't have to give me 4 examples to drive your point home. And a lot of the stuff that he did creatively in the book, I honestly think was because he would look up from, writing 20 pages of just descriptive bullshit, and then he would realize that he hadn't moved the story along, so he'd be like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have them travel by candlelight. That'll be fucking genius, because no one will have thought of traveling as fast as light before. I do apologize. I'm taking out a lot of the frustration from the month of December reading-wise on these 2. I honestly didn't dislike Stardust that much. I was just expecting to like it a lot more than I did. And I do want to give Neil Gaiman another chance. I think he's too well respected of an author for me not to at least read another one of his books before forming an opinion. But I was not that impressed with Stardust. And the last book that I read in the month of December was Sharpe's Tigers by Bernard Cornwell, which is a historical fiction detailing a British soldier, and in Sharpe's Tigers actually takes place in India in 1799. I think the majority of the series, I'm not even sure how many books is in it, takes place during the Napoleonic War. Well, this one took place in India. And it was one of those, I also listened to it on audiobook. And it was one of those, about halfway through, I was trying to decide if I liked it or not. And then about 3/4 of the way through, I was still trying to decide if I liked it or not. It wasn't like it was bad. I don't even know how to describe it. It was just kind of like, you know, just going along. I couldn't get a really good feel for it. However, towards the end of the book, when the story got a lot more suspenseful, I really did enjoy listening to the conclusion of it. I thought he built the story well. I want to go back and listen to the second one in the series at some point. I think there's a lot of potential there. It's evidently a pretty highly regarded series in the world of historical fiction. But yes, and I can tell you already, I'm not going to do much of a TBR because it tends to not work out that well. I can tell you I have finished, in the month of January so far, I've finished Unbroken by Laura Hildebrand. I've read a novel by I can't remember his first name. It was a novel I actually got off NetGalley to review. It doesn't release until March. I'm going to do a video reviewing about that because I was very surprised by it. And I have started Emma by Jane Austen. I've had a lot better of a January than I did a December. And I apologize if I sound weird. I'm getting over the flu, which sucks majorly. But since I called off today, I was like, I might as well be semi-productive and make a video. But I hope no one hates me too much for dissing Christmas Carol and Neil Gaiman. Like I said, I didn't enjoy them very much at all. But yeah, if you enjoy them, you know, good for you, hooray. Like I said, please don't hold that against me too much. But I will see y'all next time. Bye.